Welcome back. I hope everybody has had a great summer. I know it's a little nerve-wracking. Today's the first day of school in a lot of communities. There's just a lot going on for folks. So for all of you who took time to be here this morning, thank you. It's wonderful to be with you. We today are going to be hearing from the Connecticut United Way. They're going to talk about the child tax credit and the Get Your Refund campaign. We've got a few presenters from the United Way: Daniel Fitzmaurice, who's the Director of Advocacy, Cheryl Hardgrave, who's the Advocacy Coordinator, and Amy Casavina Hall, who's the Senior Vice President. So I'm going to turn it over to them. They have a sort of 10-minute-ish presentation, which we will be able to get to you, and I believe in English and Spanish. That will be uploaded to our YouTube after within 24 hours after this call. The links to both of those things will be in the description. I'll put the website in the chat in case anyone has forgotten it over this last month. That will be available after the fact, and then we'll be doing Q&A after their presentation. So Daniel, I'll turn it over to you. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. And you can go ahead.
Thanks for having us, Izzy and Ava and Meryl. And yeah, happy first day of school for anybody who is in that situation. And I don't know, perhaps you think about all the young ones you've seen in your centers over time who are also starting some kind of day of school, perhaps whether it's college or kindergarten. And as you said, Izzy, we're gonna really take an action-oriented approach to these two important projects that we're working on, because they really are powerfully beneficial to the communities you're in, the families that you serve. Really simply put, it's going to put more cash in their pocket. And at this time of year, families having just paid for school supplies, new lunch boxes, even just having to pay for summer camp, perhaps all summer, now is the time. So that's why our goal today is really to mobilize support with you to help families and communities. We've got a couple of great tools and ways to do that. So our organization is the United Way of Connecticut. I'm gonna just mention these things quickly and then let my colleagues introduce themselves. But our mission is to help folks in Connecticut to thrive. And we do that through partnerships like this one that we're starting with you all, and innovative solutions. And our values are respect, teamwork, diversity and inclusion, innovation, and integrity. And I'm sure we're in good company here in this regard. Cheryl, why don't you say hello, and then Amy?
Yes, hello everybody, and thank you so much for inviting us. Again, I'm Cheryl Hardgrave, and I'm the Advocacy Coordinator here at United Way of Connecticut. I also work on the 201 side as a Senior Information Resource Specialist. So I'm usually the one kind of reaching out and gathering information, but I did start off in a call center, so a lot of crossover when it comes to that. But yeah.
And hey, good morning, everyone. Amy Casavina Hall, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Strategic Partnerships, Development, and Communications at United Way of Connecticut. And quite frankly, we all work on all of these things. So if after this you have any questions on any of this, our contact information is available, but you can reach out to any of us and we are happy to respond and talk more and think about how we can partner on this work.
Yes, and many of those things that you were talking about, Amy, are at the bottom of all the slides. 201, Care for Kids, any number of programs that we're working on. Today, we're going to focus on just a couple. I'm going to introduce you to Alice. We're going to explain the Connecticut Child Tax Credit policy and the ways you can help us advocate for that policy in Connecticut. We're also going to go through this Get Your Refund campaign that maybe just started today, literally just started today. So you're early in the know. And throughout this, cover some easy ways to get involved. Our job is definitely to make it easy and quick for you to be involved in these things so you can help families and get back to what you're doing. So Alice is a project that all the United Ways, all the 14 United Ways across Connecticut participate in and use in thinking about how we help communities. Um, it is an acronym. So what it stands for, first and foremost, is Asset Limited, which is to say that Alice families perhaps don't have any savings or don't have a significant retirement fund or any sort of savings to lean on in times of hardship. The IC stands for income constrained. So this again means Alice families are employed and engaged in meaningful work, really critical work in their communities, but the jobs they have typically don't pay enough to cover how much it costs to live in their community. And lastly, as I suggested, the E stands for employed. So many Alice families work even multiple jobs to try to make ends meet every month, or several part-time jobs to make ends meet. Um, this is essentially an updated way of looking at the federal poverty line. It's a lot more responsive to what things cost today and what families are going through today. I imagine many families that you work with and serve every day are living under the Alice threshold. Um, and just to put a little more data behind this mismatch between how much a family is earning and what it costs to live, this data suggests that you need to make at least $114,000 a year if you're a family with 2 working adults and 2 young children, just to exceed that threshold to kind of make it. So we talk about this all the time in our work, that at least 39% of our families are Alice families and living through this hardship all the time. That map in the center, you can see it's not just isolated in 1 or 2 communities across our state. All of those colors represent the portion of families in that town that are Alice, and it's widespread. It's a widespread concern. It's a widespread hardship. But also that last graph, you could see it's not why it's disproportionately women, but also disproportionately Black and Latino or multiracial families that are experiencing this hardship. So we always take a sort of lens around race when we're talking about Alice, but also, again, this is about economic hardship and poverty and the challenges families face. I'm gonna pass it over to Cheryl to explain how the child tax credit is one of the solutions that we are always talking about to help Alice families.
Yeah, so one of the tools that we know does help families is having policies that benefit the families themselves. So the one that we're currently kind of working on and standing behind is the Connecticut Child Tax Credit. And what we're fighting for is $600 per child every year, up to about 3 kids per family, that can be represented, that actually puts the money back in the pocket of the families. And we want that policy to stand where it's refundable to the families, because that makes a big difference in how much of the money actually is going into the hands of the families. And who better to make the decisions on what the family needs than the families themselves? The There's not a program out there to help with like a flat tire or buying healthier food or helping kids get into like certain summer camps or helping with sports supplies and things like that. So those are the things that a lot of the families that we even spoke it to, that's where they would put that, or it's catching up on bills or things like that. They're responsible with the funds that they would get. They know immediately what they would spend the money on. uh, with that, at least 75% of all of our families in Connecticut would qualify as a part of this policy. So this is something that we're like really behind. We know that putting the cash back into the pockets of the family is going to help lift the families and those kids out of poverty. And this is a very popular policy. 73% of voters, that's voters with or without families or with or without kids themselves, agree that this is something that Connecticut should be doing. And right now, we're the only state that charges a state income tax that does not have an adjustment like this for the family or family size. What we also know is that you give this money to the families, it's a 38% return on the investment, meaning that those families are turning around and putting that money directly back into our neighborhoods and back into our state. That money's not going out of state and being spent elsewhere. We get a huge return as a state. So economically, it works for us as well. The graph here on the side really just kind of highlights the percentage of the families that by race that would be eligible for the child tax credit. So as you can see, Latinas and the Black community are pretty huge on that, but that doesn't mean that anyone else wouldn't. As we have white families and Asian families pretty even on that. So this is one way to get involved. We have a petition that we are asking everyone to sign, just saying that they are in support of a child tax credit. So their link is there. Also, the second part is a little bit more for you guys as far as like spreading this information to your families. So there's graphic and poster information in that link, both in English and Spanish, both of those, not only the petition, but the graphics and poster information. And the last bullet is maybe a little bit more for you guys, not excluding the families that you think would benefit from that. But this is also, we have created a easy way for you guys to contact your legislator. So that is the third link. Well, those are multiple ways to get involved. And again, everything is in English and Spanish.
Yeah, thanks, Cheryl. And as the recipient of the petition responses, I can say for sure that I hear from providers every day who are expressing their support for the child tax credit because they understand the hardship that their families face. In fact, one I know mentioned for sure that they themselves as business owners have allowed families to not pay over several months to help try to make ends meet in a given month, but that's not sustainable for them to do that. And so, trying to underscore that the policy is really the answer to make sure that families have the flexibility they need. With that said, this is a great pivot over to Amy to talk about another way that we're trying to help families get resources and cash into their pockets that they deserve and they're owed.
Thanks, Daniel. So good morning, everyone. And yes, the common theme is how do we get low-income families that are struggling money in their pockets so they can make decisions about how to best support their families. So in one hand, we're trying to pass new legislation in Connecticut with a child tax credit. And in this case, we know that there's a ton of money sitting on the table that Connecticut families are owed, and we want to help them get that money. So our campaign around this that we're doing with partners across the state is called Get Your Refund Connecticut. So when we looked at the data, there's about 45,000 households in Connecticut with children that have not claimed federal tax credits. And what we do know about these households, we don't know everything we'd like to know, so we could reach them quickly and directly, but we do know they live predominantly in our cities in Connecticut. And we also know that they're making between about $19,000 and $20,000 a year. So claiming these federal benefits could be getting 20+% of their annual income back to them. So this is really significant money, and we want to make sure that every family that's eligible for it has the support they need to get it. So this $100 million unclaimed is actually very conservative. It could be easily double that amount of money unclaimed by those 45,000 households. That's a lot of money, and we really want to make sure families get what they need. The big thing that we're focusing on is, you probably remember, in 2021, there were those enhanced federal tax credits. Most notably, the federal child tax credit was more money, and it was more families were eligible for it. So even if you had almost no earned income, you were eligible, and you got a larger benefit. That was 1 year only, and also the earned income tax credit was enhanced. you can still claim those enhanced benefits, but not after April 15th, 2025. So that's what we're aiming on, is to get 2,000 families that have not claimed those benefits, get their back taxes filed, and get everything in place so they can claim everything they're owed, but particularly so they can claim those extra meaningful benefits that won't be available anymore to claim after April 2025. So normally this time of the year, our partners that do free tax preparation services, often called VITA, this isn't their busy time, but we're so grateful. We're working together with them, and they're adding more virtual way for people to get their taxes prepared and more in-person ways for people to get their taxes prepared between now and the end of December. So we really want to use this kind of off-season time to get as many families aware that they might be owed thousands of dollars, and to give them the support to make the decision as to whether filing or not is right for them, and then to help them file those back taxes if that's the decision they want to make. So how can you get involved? Well, we're going to do a media campaign. So you'll see this on social, and you'll hear it on the radio in English and Spanish. But most importantly, is you all on this call are some of the most trusted people in families' lives. You're their child care provider, and that is such a trusted relationship. So we really are reaching out to people that have high trust with families, but you were one of our first places we wanted to come, because when families hear things from you, it really matters. So we're asking all of our partners, but particularly our partners in early childhood, to spread the news, right, with your networks, with your families, and let people know. We'll have materials posted up on our toolkit. That means you can share the social media posts in English and Spanish. We'll have a flyer that includes frequently asked questions, and everything will be linking people to ctunitedway.org/getyourrefund, where families can go get information, but most importantly, they can click the button that says schedule an appointment now for a virtual tax preparation, or schedule an in-person appointment for free tax preparation. That's what we're driving families to, is to this page on the site, so they can start the process and get engaged and get information and support to figure out if they qualify, and someone to help walk them through the process to make sure it happens and gets done. I don't know about you, but I don't smile thinking about having to file back taxes, right? That's not a great feeling, but which is why we've really worked with the free tax preparers to increase their ability and to make sure there's more support available this time of year to help people do that. And we'll have a webinar for folks like you, for like providers and networks of providers in the community who might have questions, to dive a little deeper into who qualifies and why might someone do this, or why might someone not do this. People are often not filing because they're concerned. They're concerned it might affect their existing benefits. Will this affect my housing subsidy? Will this affect SNAP? They're concerned it might affect their immigration status. My family has a mixed status. What does this mean? Is this going to put me on a list? Those are really real concerns, and we take them very seriously. Our goal is not to push anyone to file, but to make sure everyone has the information they need to make a decision about whether or not filing is right for them, because in many cases, benefits and immigration status won't be affected. To give people that information and then give them the support to do the filing, and then quickly get that money back from the federal government into their accounts. And I also just want to say really quick, and of course kick it off, that the Office of Early Childhood has been a really big partner with us on this, and they're helping to support the outreach campaign. And again, you'll see in social media, you'll see on your streaming channels, you'll hear on the radio. So just great appreciation for the support for this effort, knowing that the families that Office of Early Childhood serves can use these funds, the providers are working with, that this is a kind of a win-win for everyone involved.
So I think we've made it to questions time, and I can just flow into it if y'all want me to. because this first one is so good, which is about which of these are in effect today. Do we need, which of these are we advocating for? So if I may just keep using the slide deck here, the Get Your Refund campaign that Amy just talked about, those are all to collect existing policies, existing tax credits, existing benefits based on filing your taxes from the last couple of years. So we're essentially, those already exist. Families qualify for those refunds today. They just have to file or refile their taxes in order to do that. And the child tax credit in Connecticut, the state level child tax credit, that does not exist yet. So that petition that we're circulating, the effort, the advocacy effort that many folks on this call I know have been involved in fighting for, has been in play for a couple of years and will be an important part of the legislative session in January. So there's a connection, though, to the insight that, the things that we're talking about right now is about getting families back money that they're owed from government, and again, maximizing how much we can direct cash that we could provide families through taxes. It's probably notable too, albeit maybe a little wonky, that starting next year, in next tax filing season, the state is participating in the direct file program, which is another way that it's going to be free for many families to file their taxes directly with the federal government for the first time. So again, as we work on these, improving our state policies, our state tax policies to help families with direct cash benefits, we're also excited that it's going to be easier than ever to file your taxes next year. So perhaps we won't have to run campaigns in the future to get folks their refunds. But if we need to, we of course will.
So just to clarify, the people who you're targeting for the Get Your Refund campaign are people who fall into two categories: people who didn't file taxes and people who filed taxes but didn't claim the credit. And so, people who didn't file taxes might be people who work in the cash economy, who just figured I'd fall under the radar, and who don't understand that, okay, so I might owe $1,000 in taxes, but I might be able to get back several $1,000s in a refundable tax credit because I have kids. And the people who just, did their taxes and didn't look at it carefully and figure out that there was a credit that they were eligible for. And so that COVID tax credit that Rosa DeLauro fought for, of how many $1,000s per child? I'm trying to remember.
3,600 under the age of 6.
Yeah.
I think 3,000 over the age of 6.
So for a family with 3 kids with one under, that's a lot of money.
Yes.
You might be getting, almost $10,000 back. And, if you didn't file, or you did your taxes and you didn't claim it, that's real money. Yeah.
And then to your point, Meryl, those folks we're working with, I mean, they're on this campaign are fine-tuned, focused on those exact benefits and credit. Right. So they're not H&R Block or a local friend who's filing taxes. They're extremely focused on making sure these benefits are accessed by families who didn't claim them yet.
Right.
So I have a question. There's some income guidelines for being a family that can use the VITA service, or at least that's how it was a few years ago. Are folks who may be missing out on this credit, have they paid enough into the system? Rather, if you're going to get $10,000 back, you've paid something in. So does the income eligibility match up to who is also being served by VITA? Or should people reach out to VITA if they think they may be in that category, or is it better to go towards a different kind of tax filer? And maybe you could give some examples of those income guidelines.
So it's a great question, and it gets a little yes, no, maybe, because there was different tax law in different years, right? So
Yeah.
yes then, but no now, which is why people don't claim these incredibly powerful benefits, right? Because tax law has never been particularly clear. I don't know about you, but I don't find it particularly clear. Nor do I pay, nor is it something I normally think about all the time. Actually, I do in this role, but before I didn't think about it all the time. And I think that's what most people are like. So the income guidelines for VITA are about $60,000 a year of annual income. If you're on 60,000 and under, you can work with a VITA or free tax preparation service. They're IRS certified. They are trained on how to do this. And this is what they do, right? So you can have great faith that you're getting a preparer that's handling your information safely and knows what they're doing. But those that tax year 2021 is special because normally you have to have some earned income to really get the value of both the earned income tax credit or the child tax credit, federal child tax credit. And the piece of that that's not logical to normal people, I think, is that families who need it the most often don't qualify because they don't have enough income from working to qualify. But not in tax year 2021.
Okay.
That's the exception. So you can have essentially little to no income from work, but still get the full value of the benefit, right?
That's great.
So
I'm sure I knew that at one point, but it has been purged.
Right?
I'm glad you helped us remember that.
Right. And, from what we've learned about these families, again, between about $18,000 to $20,000 of adjusted gross income per year for both of these tax credits. That's the absolute, and you have children, the sweet spot to get really maximize the benefit, right? These are the families that can walk away with essentially life-changing money.
So
I'm not going to say everyone's going to qualify or everyone's going to be in that situation, but that is a likely situation for many people. Walking away with 20-30% of what they've earned in a year back in their pockets.
So what is your recommendation for, if there's people on this call saying, gee, I wonder if that's me, what is the easiest step they can take to figure out, we're going back to 2020 now, I'm not talking about the other things, just for this one, what's the easiest step they can take to figure out if they qualified for it and if they claimed it?
So the easiest step, and what we're asking everyone to do, is go to ctunitedway.org/get-your-refund. The quickest thing to do is hit the virtual button. Right there, you'll get in and you'll get connected to someone, or you can schedule a time that works for you that can walk you through and see, did you qualify, and help you make that decision. Please don't weed yourself out. Please don't have families think, well, I'm not sure, so I'm not going to go or click the button. Our hope is as many people as possible go. And if you're not eligible, okay, quick and easy to find out you're not eligible. But if you are, then the people will be there to support you to get you through that process.
That's great. That's
So,
Meryl, did you have a
just to
follow-up?
clarify, we're talking about tax year 2021?
We're talking about any back taxes.
Any back taxes, okay.
But particularly we care about tax year 2021 because the money's quite frankly so big and they're expiring mid-April. So we want to make sure everyone gets those who can.
Those were the taxes that you submitted by April 2022, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And there's a question here about what about people who are who have a tax ID, who are many family child care providers, have U.S. citizen kids, and they pay taxes with a tax ID because they're not U.S. citizens. Someone want to explain that?
Yes, you can use an ITIN or an individual taxpayer identification number to claim the federal child tax credit. So please don't let using an ITIN be a barrier for you or a family you serve. Again, the best thing to do is to click the button on the site and start talking with an expert who can walk through all these questions with you. We want to make sure, I mean, people don't file often for a good reason, right? And it might be, here's what happened to my friend.
Yeah.
Here's what happened to a neighbor. Here's what someone at work told me. And that might be true, but it might not be true. It might be unique to their circumstance. So our hope is, let's give everyone the information they need to know if this makes sense for them, as many people as possible, and let's support as many people as possible to get through the process and have someone, you know, there that you don't need to know about how to file your back taxes. You're just working with someone that makes it easy for you and can help inform you for you to make good decisions. But we'd rather have more people come in and figure out.
The refund would have been only for the 2020-21 filing season. Somebody's asking about 2022. That wasn't a year that we're talking about here.
It wasn't expanded, but there are still lots of unclaimed benefits on the table.
Okay.
And again, this is money people are owed, right? This is
it's your money.
The government said, we owe you money.
Right.
Like, let's get it back to people.
Right.
Well, and I also want to address the other half of this other question. I may have, if you like TurboTax and H&R Block, go ahead. They do work, right? These credits are not exclusive to using the program, you know, the services we're offering, but I think the difference is that the services we're offering are led by humans who can answer your questions, engage with things. I mean, there is a slight difference, and they're free. And so but yes, anyway, if you're talking to families, for example, if they're more comfortable filing their taxes in some other format, I think I would still encourage that to happen in order to make sure that they are aware that they might be missing out on some benefits, that, again, the money that's owed to them, whatever their preferred method to do that is, I hope they use it.
They're free, but is there an income restriction on what you offer? Not the check your eligibility, but for VITA, there is. Is that what we're discussing? I'm sorry. Is that what you're referring to, Daniel? Is using the VITA service?
For VITA, yes, and for this campaign.
Yeah, so there is an income eligibility there. So for folks who are over that, then TurboTax, H&R Block, those. And so will they, will those programs understand, will they understand these credits and be able to walk someone through accessing them? But the question is, you should still go to get your refund, set up an appointment to find out if you are owed something, if you were eligible. And that way, when you do file or when you file back, then you know what you should be looking for. Okay. For the COVID child tax credit, what was the income limit for a family of 4? And was it higher than the regular amount?
Oh, there was no income limit. That is, and it was fully refundable. Everyone received that. But maybe there's a cutoff way at the high end, Amy.
There is a cutoff at the high end,
but it's an extraordinarily high cutoff. It was designed as COVID relief, so it was designed as a and it also was a phase out. It wasn't just a hard cutoff. So I think there were ways that if you had higher income families, they would still qualify for some, just not all of the 3,600 or 3,000.
Yep. Okay. So, and I can just tell everyone, in a previous role, we would let our let VITA volunteers use our office during tax season. And so I shared a space with them. They were remarkable, well-trained, discreet. I can personally vouch for that program. I think I send my mom there, and who didn't file for many years for exactly the reasons that Amy described. She was worried that she would lose some benefits, and so just I personally think it's a remarkable program if you're income eligible for it. Question here about how you can access the flyers or any of these campaigns, I guess. It said, one of the slides said there was a toolkit, print out flyers from a toolkit. Where is that stuff located?
So
and can you
forget
put
your
the website
refund
into the chat?
Yes. So forget your refund CT. We are about to launch. So the hard launch is actually next week, but we wanted to get in front of you all first, and we'll do a follow-up email. but those materials will be on the same page where we're sending people. So that's ctunitedway.org/getyourrefund.
Great.
And the CTC child tax credit petition is live. And Daniel, do you want to say, I know it's in the chat, but do you want to say that out loud again?
Yep. The chat doesn't want to take my links, but
I got it.
You see the litany of social media graphics, as well as posters of different sizes in English and Spanish that you can pull down. And, you know, I know you all have different ways you communicate with families, but they're easy to text if you use those services. They're easy to throw in a newsletter. They're easy to just print and stick up on the wall somewhere. So these are in both cases ready to go, ready to, and if you need any more help or support with that, you'll have our contact information and be happy to collaborate or get you a different size or different language. Or we really want to make sure that families know and that families are involved in these campaigns.
Great. Ava?
I have a comment and then a question. My comment is for providers on the call, when you're using VITA services, after many, many years of the union, SEIU, CSCA advocating on behalf of providers to access VITA, they do accept VITA applications for doing your business account, specifically when it's childcare. Typically, VITA does not do independent contractors who have a business account. They typically stick to families or households, like normal tax returns rather than business tax returns. But with childcare providers, that is the exception. You do still have to fall within the income bracket. So if you're a childcare center or a home-based provider that makes more than the amount that was stated here, I think it was 65,000, right? That's the cutoff. Then you should look for a CPA or other means to perform your tax needs. My question, a lot of people on this call are very tuned in to what's happening in the presidential conversation and candidacy, and it seems that certain candidates seem to have a platform on child tax credits and other credits for family members. What does the national change have, if any, an impact on this conversation?
So let me jump in on federal tax stuff. The tax credits that were enacted in 2016 are about to expire. And so coming next year, Congress will rewrite the tax code. It doesn't particularly matter who wins in the White House or in Congress. It's going to be a big battle within Congress. I mean, it does matter, those things, but
It's happening either way.
There are an array, yes, happening either way. And there are an array of special interests lining up to try and win credits for their particular things. And nothing passes the Senate unless it gets 67 votes, because we have a filibuster rule. So the things that are most likely to pass are things that can get bipartisan support. So that will result in lots of deal cutting. I wanted to take a little time to talk about a proposal for a federal child independent care tax credit. Right now,
actually, this might be a great transition time, Meryl. If you could just give me 1 second.
Sure.
Amy, Cheryl, Daniel, did you have other things you needed to go over? Because I think we actually could transition into that.
I can wiggle my also answer to this question in, and then you could kick us out, which
Fantastic.
is
We won't kick you out, but we'll
it is
let you
important.
leave. So
it is important, and I think on fundamentally, it's so exciting that it has become a national conversation about the need to use this type of credit policy to help families. And I also think it's important that we, as residents of Connecticut, a very high cost of living state, underscore the need for a state level adjustment like this state level child tax credit too. So just to play it out, you know, my family members in Georgia will receive the same federal child tax credit should it pass next year in this tax, you know, package. But their cost of living is very different than our cost of living. And so what I anticipate we'll see, and we've already seen it last year, 4 states enacted or expanded their state level child tax credit. So, and those were typically higher income or higher cost of living states. So I think we're going to see states adopting a both and approach. And I know our state legislators are, even 2 years ago when this really started, are always trying to make sure that the policies lock in to make it easy and simple for families to qualify and receive the maximum benefit from both. Should both be enacted, a federal and a state level child tax credit, which would be fantastic.
Thanks so much, Daniel. Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Cheryl. Really great information. If you could, before you log off, if you could each put contact information into the chat for everyone, that way people can get in touch if need be. And we really appreciate your time this morning.
Okay.
All right, Meryl,
So,
thank you.
next year, there will be a battle in Congress over taxes, and it will include tax breaks for businesses. It'll include tax breaks for families. And there are a couple of things that have already been raised as possible changes. Rosa DeLauro is working to try and renew the federal child tax credit and pushing to make that refundable and a higher amount per child. She liked what she was able to accomplish during COVID as a way to create a way of transferring money to families who need it to raise children. There is also a set of proposals around tax credits for the money that parents spend on childcare. There's a tax credit called the Child and Dependent Care Credit, which enables you to get a tax credit for the money you've spent on child.
Oh, wait, hold on 1 second. Let me fix the translation. Apologies, give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. All right, I think we're good.
Yeah. So that dependent care credit has bipartisan introducers. Senator Britt from Mississippi or Alabama, I always confuse the two, is the Republican sponsor, and Senator Kaine from Virginia is the Democratic sponsor. They are proposing increasing the amount that you can get in a credit and making it refundable. Vanessa's just stuck in a fact sheet about that. And then there is also a proposal, part of their proposal is to make it so that you can increase the amount that you put aside pre-tax to pay for childcare. Right now you get to choose one or the other. You can say, I'm going to have my employer deduct this much money per paycheck so that I can pay for childcare with pre-tax dollars. Or I can, at the end, take a tax credit on my taxes. The proposal is actually to let people do both, because right now neither one of them amounts to more than a couple $1,000s. And we know that there are lots of families paying much more than a couple $1,000s for childcare. So that it's been introduced this year in Congress. It's not going anywhere this year. Really, all that's going to happen in Congress is they will pass a continuing resolution to continue to fund the government until the election. And then after the election, they'll come back and they will try and pass a budget. And nothing else really will pass. But starting next year with a new Congress and a new president, we will have a whole rewrite. And Emily has just put something into the chat there about tax policy. So over the next year, there's going to be a lot to do with pushing for child tax benefits, whether those are the child tax credit or the child independent care credit. And we're going to need your help to move those through Congress. So there's a petition that we've got that mirrors the United Way petition. We're working closely with the United Way on the Connecticut child tax credit, along with Voices for Children. And anybody who signs that petition will also be updated about what's going on with the federal tax credit. And we want to make sure that folks are kept in the loop about that. This is something, the dependent care credit is something that's particularly important to families paying for childcare. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if people have them about those two things.
Let me just ask a question about petition. Are you asking folks to sign both the Early Childhood Alliance one and the United Way one?
Our petition mirrors the United Way one. The only advantage, if you haven't signed the United Way already, is that we'll be able to keep you up to date with what's going on in the federal stuff as well. And I don't think that's really their focus.
So if you sign either one, your name is added to the list.
Yeah.
And if you sign yours, you'll also get information on federal.
On the federals, yeah,
Great.
especially the dependent care credit.
Okay, that's helpful for that. That was confusing to me. And thank you, Emily, for sharing that extremely helpful candidate briefing book. I see there's so much information in here that Vanessa is sharing from the Early Childhood Alliance. Listen, folks, just click these, scan them, know they're there. It's helpful. Just, this stuff gets really confusing really fast. And it is hard to keep track of what's coming down the pike. But there may be a day when you're running into a legislator and you want to say, you know what, I just read this thing. I don't remember the details, but I hope you'll take a look at it. It's good to just know it in your mind. Okay, Meryl, did you have other updates you wanted to go through?
Well, I did want to make the announcement that the Alliance will resume in-person and hybrid meetings starting the first Thursday of September. We will be meeting at the Torrington Children's Museum, which is a really cool place. And that will be a hybrid meeting. Anybody who wants to join us in person can come up and take a tour of the Children's Museum. We will also have a Zoom connection for that. The Alliance meetings are open to people who want to come check us out. Our goal is that you would join the Alliance. Our membership dues are relatively modest. And that is the way that we come together as a collective voice to lobby for things related to childcare, to children's health and welfare. And we are stronger when we are all working together. And so the Alliance has been around for 22 years now, or 23, somewhere in there. And as we go into this next legislative session, it's really important to have as many members as possible. We're revising our website so that there'll be some stuff that we could share, but I think that Vanessa has just shared the information about the meeting that's coming up. Those meetings are where we decide what our priorities will be for the coming year. So this is a place where folks come together, talk about issues, learn about issues, and decide what is it that we all want to work on together. We will also be doing an advocacy academy this fall to help folks learn how the process works and how to be effective advocates. But this is the way that we can all come together around a set of, the Alliance looks at what are the regulations that are being proposed. The Alliance looks at childcare and children's health and tax policy, all of that set of things, and we are stronger when we're all working together.
They also pay you to know stuff and come here every Monday, pass that knowledge on to
Yeah.
a really big group of folks. So, everyone here is benefiting from that, whether you're a member or not. But I also would put in a plug to become a member to support even Meryl being able to be here, because it's a small amount of money for what we all get out of that knowledge in the course of a year.
Okay.
Is that it for you, Meryl?
Yep, I think so.
All right, thank you so much. Ava, are you available to do your update now? She was helping with interpretation. So let's see if we can swap out. Sometimes Sandra needs a break, guys. It gets to be intense with a lot of acronyms and things. So Ava pops in usually, does a quick break for Sandra. And here you are. Great. You're back. Welcome. Yes.
Yes.
I'll pop in and make sure. Okay, you can go ahead. Sandra, you may be muted.
Update their Zooms.
1 second. I believe Sandra is muted. So I just want to give that 1 second for her to come back. Nope, I just checked. The settings are fine. You didn't mess anything up. Okay, go ahead. I'll chat her. I think proceed, Ava, and we'll just catch folks up.
Okay, I'll go ahead. So Childcare for Connecticut's Future has a multitude of things that we're working on, and they're gonna kind of like the Early Childhood Alliance. It's been a busy summer preparing and making sure that we're on the up and up on what's happening on legislation, and it's going to be a busy fall. So I just wanted to share with all of you some important dates that are already in the works and real. So 2 specific important dates that I want you all to save on your calendar. We're going to have our first community meeting back from summer recess, September 18th. September 18th community meeting. That's at 6:30 p.m. That particular meeting, we're going to have a conversation kind of recapping what happened this summer with our data committee, research, and our policy agenda, and then really gearing up to what 2025 looks like. So September 18th, community meeting, Childcare for Connecticut's Future, and discussing policy agenda for the future. And then the other big date, there's other meetings in between. If you're a Childcare for Connecticut's Future member or you're on our mailing list, you will get the full calendar very soon with all of these specific dates. But the other big date that's open to anybody, and these meetings are not closed meetings. You could come if you haven't been to a Childcare for CT meeting, that's okay. You can log in. But the big date that we've been planning is a film screening of Clarissa's Battle. For those who have not seen Clarissa's Battle, it's a documentary specifically on childcare and the struggle that a parent had in trying to access and find affordable childcare for her and her son, and how she went from being a desperate parent just trying to survive to then becoming an advocate for providers, an advocate for other parents nationwide. And it's kind of just following that trajectory of that struggle, right? I think I've seen the documentary 3 times now. I find it to be inspirational. It's inspirational to me because it really highlights all the work that you guys do and the sacrifice and struggle that parents have. It frames it in a real life scenario, and you really just see the fight in Clarissa. Clarissa will be coming from California. The star of this documentary will be coming from California to join us in this film screening. So she'll be physically here in Connecticut. We're going to be having a legislative roundtable with her discussing the childcare crisis. And we want to make sure that the audience is packed with you so that the questions, the feedback, the conversations that we're having with the legislators are true to your hearts, true to your story, true to your struggle, and surrounding that space with all of those very powerful elected officials with people who are going through it. That date is going to be November 14th, Thursday, as well as November 16th, Saturday. So Thursday evening, November 14th, when your child care space is over for the day, at 6, we're going to meet in New Haven in the Friends Center, their new spot that they purchased a movie theater there. And then same location, the 16th on Saturday, we're going to kick it off at 10:30 a.m. So there's 2 film screenings. Clarissa will be at both, but I wanted you all to save the date because we just want to make sure that we're sharing the space and having a community conversation about childcare statewide. So September 18th, November 14th, November 16th, if you can save those dates, I'll put them on the chat and you'll most likely get an email from us. If you're not on the listserv, then I'll make sure that the ECE listserv also has that information. That's all I have.
So I had the pleasure of being on a panel with Clarissa when it was shown at UConn, and got about 45 minutes to talk with her before it started. She's an amazing person, parent on the equivalent of Care for Kids wait list in Alameda County, California. She was homeless, living in the car with her son when she started this battle, and she grew to be this national leader on childcare. She's a really amazing person and her story is really powerful. You should think about not just coming yourself, but bringing some of your parents with you. It's really powerful.
And Ava, thank you, Meryl. Ava, do you have one of those, if people were going to bring parents, going to invite folks, do you want them to push for the November 14th or November 16th or either one?
For this group, I would say either one, whichever is more accessible. Obviously, the key one that we really want to pack the room to have harder conversations is with the legislative one, November 14th. But we understand it's a tricky time, closing your space and then heading to New Haven and getting there before 6:30. We're planning on starting the screening at 6:30. So getting there at 6 might be difficult. If you can't do it, then, come Saturday. Specifically, the reason we selected Thursday is because we're really pushing elected officials to be present. We want to get some news crew out there, some media. And Thursday is a much more reliable day to make it on the news than a Saturday, sadly.
So the 14th, there'll be a roundtable, legislators present, Q&A with Clarissa. The 16th, Q&A with Clarissa, but legislators would be welcome to attend as well, but
Correct.
We're pushing for them to attend the 14th.
Correct. That's correct.
Great. All right. Thank you so much for that. That's everything for this morning? Okay. Well, everybody, so great to be with you today. We got pretty good attendance for the first day back from break. We will take another break next week in honor of Labor Day and see you all back September 9th. Spread the word and say the date. Beth By and the Office of Early Childhood, and it is always a great conversation. So thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful 2 weeks, and we will see you soon.
Okay.